Hi and welcome. Today we're going to be delving into the deep, dark truth about men's mental health in the army, both at home and overseas. Then, to lighten the load, we're also going to get some proven coping strategies from Kieron, following his experiences in the army with mental health issues. So, welcome, Kieron. Kieron is a good friend of mine. We have served in the army together, both in the UK and overseas. Kieron has suffered with his mental health for how many years now, Kieron?
Diagnosed, 2 years ago? But I think looking back and researching a lot of mental health,
Yeah.
I think I've definitely suffered a lot longer over the years.
Yeah. And he's now about to leave the army and start a new life as a civilian. Just wanted to start by saying that this is incredibly important to do and brave of Kieron to come on and share his experiences with you guys at home. And I say it's incredibly important as suicide rates amongst military personnel rise worldwide, particularly with men. Kieron, if you'd like to just tell the audience at home a little bit about yourself and about your experiences.
My name's Kieron. I joined the army in 2011, joined up as a dog trainer. From my first few years, I was at 104 Military Working Dog Squadron, where I deployed to Afghanistan with Stacey. I then became a dog trainer and an instructor at the Defence Animal Training Regiment, where I spent 3.5 years. From there, I moved on to 105 Military Working Dog Squadron as a section commander, where I was in charge of the protection dogs, making sure the handlers and the dogs were ready for operations. There, I also deployed to New Zealand for 5 months, where I worked with the New Zealand Special Forces dog section. I also went out to Saudi Arabia to help their dog program. From there, I was posted down to Hereford to work with the Special Forces. I was in one of their squadron dog trainers for 2 years, deployed on 2 operations and 2 overseas training teams. From Hereford, I moved back to the dog regiment. That's where I started to notice where my mental health really did decline, especially after my dog passed away. Freddie was the dog that I had in Afghanistan in 2013, which when we returned, I rehomed him and he followed me around the UK until he passed away. And that really hit me hard. So I think that's also what made me struggle a lot. That's where I really did sort of reach out to friends for help. And I was sort of pushed down the right direction for getting to where I am now. From there, I became one of the senior dog trainers for the whole dog regiment. And I set up and ran the rehome team, which I was quite proud of, to take the dogs and rehabilitate them to become pet dogs. I started struggling again with my mental health, and that was the point where the doctors took me off work. And then we got to the medical board, where the medical board sort of agreed and was like, yeah, we need to medically discharge you. And then, yeah, and only been onwards and upwards from there.
Mm-hmm. It just sort of reiterates how the military can affect your mental health and how you can end up completely changing the path of your career through mental health. It's important to get that help, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
So I'd just like to ask you a few questions to help people at home with your experiences. Hopefully it will resonate with them. Do you think that seeking mental health support is seen as a sign of weakness among men in the military, despite the rising awareness?
I think it's more within your own mind, it's seen as a weakness. I'll explain that. The hardest thing for me to do was admit to myself,
Okay.
because I always thought everyone then was going to look at me like "gone wibble," is what we used to say to
Yeah.
people, and that's what always scared me was, I don't know what everyone else is going to think of me, especially when I came back from Hereford and I was section commander,
Mm-hmm.
and for me it was all my soldiers looked up to me because they were like, oh, we've got this ex-special forces dog trainer who's now our section commander.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what they were going to think of me.
Mm-hmm.
So like, oh, all of a sudden he's no longer coming into work every day. But once I did reach out, everyone was just like, good on you. You've probably done one of the bravest things you could have done. And that's where it calmed down a bit. And I thought, you know what, it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be, sort of reaching out for that help.
So you say you had fear of judgment?
Yeah, like, what's everyone else around me going to think of me?
Yeah. So for you, Kieron, at what point did you feel sort of safe to come out and speak to people about your mental health within the military?
I had a friend, he worked in stores, so he was part of the squadron but wasn't part of like the everyday.
Yeah.
So I felt comfortable going and talking to him away from the squadron. And it was him that when I had my big breakdown, he was the one who I went to see, and I was like, I need help. And he was the one that got me the help that I needed.
Okay. Is that help within the army?
Yeah, so he went to the welfare officer, and again, it was sort of that I still didn't really want anyone else to know. I was like, I want you to set up the appointment, but I just don't want you to. And then I had the meeting, and then I asked him, "Can you come with me?"
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to go in by myself.
Yeah.
So he came in with me, and then that same day, he sent me to the med centre, and I was in with the doctors, and the doctor took me off work for 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And again, I still didn't want anyone to know.
Yeah.
Because I went in to see my sergeant and my troop commander, gave them the paperwork, and I was still like, "Can we just tell people that I've got an issue somewhere else, and you've sent me home or something, that this isn't happening."
So you would rather people think that you had a physical problem rather than a mental problem through the fear of being seen as weak?
Yeah. After a while, I started realising that this is part of the problem. This is like the stigma around mental health.
Yeah.
So that's why I was very keen to then open up to everyone.
Yeah.
And once I did start opening up to, especially my troops, where it's like, the reason I'm not in work is because I'm struggling with mental health.
Yeah.
Got diagnosed with depression. They were all like, "Yeah, we thought something was going on." And then it was all sort of like, it's quite nice for you to speak about it.
Yeah, just stepping over that line, isn't it? I think. Yeah.
Since I have done that and I've been open and talking about it, I've had quite a lot of people now come and speak to me and sort of ask for the direction on what they should do next.
So you've become like the advocate for mental health within your squadron?
Yeah. I think it's probably more regiment size.
Okay.
I still have people who come to me who are not part of my squadrons and like, "Oh, when you were seeking help, who did you go to, or where did you go?"
Yeah.
And so I feel like I've helped a few people.
Absolutely. I think that's really commendable. You know, if you can be the person in that position and offer that support to people, you know, you might have felt differently, or you might have been able to seek that help earlier had you have had someone like yourself within the regiment that you felt that you could go and talk to. So yeah, no, I think it's really brave and really commendable that you got yourself into that position and people could seek help with you.
Yeah.
So how many fellow soldiers would you say, as a percentage, actually suffer in silence due to their mental health because they're not wanting to speak out about the struggles that they're having?
I think probably everyone on this planet has some sort of suffering with their mental health. It's just at what level.
Yeah.
But I do think there is a lot more soldiers than what people think are out there that are sitting and struggling in silence.
And why do you think that is?
Yeah, and I think it's the stigma and the fear of stepping up and being not okay.
Yeah.
This isn't okay.
Do you think it's because of the bravado of the military way to be, stiff upper lip kind of thing? It's still there, isn't it, in the military?
Yeah, and I think two things with the military, you need to be tough.
Yeah.
Because of the situations that you could potentially be in your life.
Yeah.
But equally, it's also knowing when you don't need to be tough and you can sort of step up and go, now's not the best time.
Yeah.
But I think it's not so much the soldier, it's more his management above him, or her management as well.
Yeah.
And I think they're the ones that also need to be educated.
Yeah.
Because you've got a lot of old school soldiers that are some ages, OCs, that aren't really educated into mental health.
Yeah.
And I think that's where, within the military especially, that's where a lot of the education needs to be at that higher ranks, so that they can understand and see the signs in their soldiers.
Yeah, I would agree.
Which is something I think is massively lacking.
Yeah. So what would you say your most prominent mental health issue has been over the past few years that you've suffered?
So I always go back to depression, mainly because that's what the doctor diagnosed me with.
Okay.
So that sort of sticks in my head.
Okay.
But when I looked into depression, I think I have sort of struggled with depression for years.
Okay.
Without, again, wanting to admit that I had issues.
Okay.
But obviously then it got to the point where I thought, I can't carry on like this anymore.
It's a bit like a snowball effect, isn't it? It just kind of gets worse and worse if you just don't address that problem.
Yeah. And I look back at when I did struggle when my ex-wife left me. I was struggling, and my sergeant major wanted me to go and see help. And I was like, no, because of the job that I wanted to do, I didn't really want any on my record.
So you feel that could have had a negative impact on your career?
Yeah. He ended up giving me a load of numbers and stuff like that for like the NHS stuff that is away from the military.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't reach out for help then. Maybe if I did, I could have solved my problems a lot earlier.
Yeah.
At this point, I was focusing on the job that I wanted to do,
Yep.
and that was to go down to Hereford. And I thought that that was going to maybe impact on getting that opportunity to go down there and be the dog trainer down there.
Do you feel like PTSD has played a part in your mental health at all within the military? Because I know earlier you said that you were a Special Forces dog trainer and dog handler, and you've been out with the Special Forces on operations. Do you feel like any events that happened during that time has affected your mental health?
From all my operations and stuff that I've done, I think how that's affected me is where your brain's on alert for so long, and then sometimes it takes a long time for your brain to come down. It's probably more like the burnout, where you're working at such high levels constantly for so long with little time off. It gets to a point where your sort of brain just goes, we can't do this anymore. You can't work at that level constantly.
So it's not post-traumatic stress as such, but it is in a way, the whole 7 months was traumatic. It is a traumatic experience going to war. Things aren't pretty. The average person doesn't experience the things that both you and I have experienced overseas, and a lot of people probably watching this video now have experienced overseas. And so mental health is going to be different in comparison to someone who has never experienced those things. So you touched earlier on your breakdown of your marriage. Do you think that had the largest effect on your mental health during the military? Do you think that was a mixture of being away for such a long time and not being able to nurture that relationship?
Yeah, from the amount of time that we were married, I spent quite a lot of that time overseas and away. And I do think when that happened, I moved back into military accommodation, and I sort of dealt with that by doing all the stuff in work. So then I threw myself into, I want to go and do this for a month. I'm going to do that for a month. And then I went out to Saudi, straight back from Saudi, straight down to Hereford.
Yeah.
Busy, busy, busy. And it wasn't until when I did start having a breakdown, it sort of thought, maybe this is now, I locked that away for so long. And that's also now, it just sort of spilled over and everything sort of hit me in a wanna. So I do think that it had an effect long term over the time. I don't think that's the main reason, but I think it was one of the reasons that made me spill over.
So I'd say that was probably an unhealthy coping strategy of yours, and that was to make yourself extremely busy, which in turn made you not think about the issues that you were facing, which was the breakdown of your marriage.
I didn't want to face it there and then, so sort of threw myself into work, went to work with the Special Forces, and then in time, burnt out. And then when I was dealing with that, and then the death of Freddie, that also then cropped up. And then everything just spilled out.
Obviously, there's things that I know about you, us being good friends, and I wonder if you would share with the people at home what your darkest moment was like and what you wanted to do during that darkest moment.
I've had two dark moments. I had a moment when I was driving, I went up to Peak District, and I thought, I don't want to go back. I'm done. I don't want to go back to the real world. And I was just going to drive myself off a cliff, because I thought that's the best way, because people will think that's an accident. And that's how I sort of justified it in my own head. But luckily, Freddie was in the back of the car. And as I was speeding up down the road, Freddie just stood up, and I seen him in the mirror looking at me. And that was the moment where I slammed my brakes on, came off the road. And so that was where I gathered myself and was like, right, we're going home, Freddie. And I think Freddie being there, it was more of the, you don't deserve to die. So I valued his life more than mine at the time. And I didn't really trust anyone to look after him. So it was more, I'm your best mate. What are you going to do without me? So that was a tough moment for me when I look back.
Really appreciate you sharing that, Kieron. Thank you. It's really brave to share it, because obviously this is going to go out to the world and it's very personal to you. So appreciate that you're sharing it, and hopefully other people watching this back home, if they feel that way, they can get hope in looking at how far you've come. And you say there was a second?
The second one was, this happened on the Friday or the Saturday night, and then on the Monday, that's where I reached out for help. I felt like I wasn't appreciated by anyone, and it was just, that's how you like, sometimes you go into work and your section's telling you, like, oh, we're really happy that you're here. But then you go and sit in your room and you're like, I'm not worth shit.
Sort of self-deprecating thoughts and negative talk.
And then I went home, because I still had my house in Hereford at the time. And I went home, started drinking, got drunk, and then in my spare room, I had my interest room. I had all my military pictures on the wall, had everything that I'd gathered up over my career. And I just ripped it all off the wall and just smashed it all to pieces, which wasn't a fun moment.
I think I spoke to you the next day, didn't I? The next day?
because you probably got, I think you got a phone call off me at 3 in the morning.
I did.
Because it was trying to ring people, because at that moment in time I didn't have the dog with me, and I was like, someone needs to talk to me. I realised then I needed someone
to talk you out of that.
I needed someone outside of my own head to go, right, Kieron, stop. What are you doing?
So would you say being on your own is probably one of the worst things that you could have been at that point?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think what I have learned over the past couple of years, is that you need that group around you. The group is what drags you out of it, really. Yeah. That's what I always say. It's my ring of steel. It's my ring of steel that helps me out.
And the ring of steel. Lovely. No, it's nice. It is nice, because as we were saying earlier before we came on camera, we are the family that you chose, and you are the family that we chose. So definitely one to take away, isn't it?
Yeah. If you can go and open up to your friends and they go, oh, bloody hell, you're struggling. Let's sit down, let's talk.
Let's go for a walk, or let's go scream at the top of a mountain for a bit.
Yeah, screaming at the top of a mountain. And I think if you've got one of them friends who doesn't want to listen and doesn't care, get rid of them. They're not your friends. And I always say that I stole this off someone else. It's the difference between your 6 p.m. friend and a 3 a.m. friend. And your 3 a.m. friends are the ones that, as soon as you ring, they're either straight on the phone to you, or first thing in the morning, they're like straight back to you. What's going on?
Yeah.
Whereas your 6 p.m. friends are the ones who might message you back, or like a couple of days later, with, oh, did you try and ring me? So try and surround yourself with your 3 a.m. friends rather than your 6 p.m. friends.
Nice bit of advice. Lovely. Thank you for sharing that, Kieron. Appreciate that. So moving on to leadership within the army. How do you feel that we can better equip leadership to be able to recognise the signs of mental health in people, or mental health issues in people?
It's an education. I've dealt with sergeant majors in the past when I've had soldiers dealing with mental health.
Yeah. And
their response was, they've never been on tour, so what do they know? They're not struggling.
So they just assume that you have to go on tour in order to have mental health issues.
Yeah, to some people in the army, mental health is just PTSD, and that's where it's, this person's not done anything, so they don't have PTSD.
Yeah.
So,
what's their problem? And as we've touched on within the video just now, it's not always PTSD that people struggle with. It's things that are happening at home, or it's things that are happening outside of your control, environmental things. Your dog passing away was a massive thing for you, and that is completely out of your control, and it has an effect on your mental health. And I think giving that knowledge is going to be really important to helping people recognise the signs and mental health struggles with people.
I think it's like the generational change as well. You see a lot of people now, a lot more younger people are struggling with the mental health, and I think that as well upsets a lot of the older generation.
Okay.
What do you know?
Yeah.
Why are you struggling? You don't know the struggle that people have been through. But I think it's that, again, like you're saying, it's all different circumstances. Yeah. Something could have happened here, something could have happened there.
Social media is quite a large one, isn't it, for the youngsters these days?
It's fake.
It is. Yeah.
Social media is fake, and you see so much on there where it's this person, this is so rich. Look, I wish I had this life. They don't have that life. That's all fake.
And even if they do, it doesn't mean that they're happy.
That's another big one. People aren't happy behind the screens.
Absolutely, and I personally know people who have put happy pictures on social media, and then we've had a conversation a few weeks later, and I said, how was the holiday, and that sort of thing, and they've come out and said, oh, it was terrible because of X, Y and Z, and we had arguments and this, that and the other. And I think it's just taking social media with a pinch of salt and realising that there are sad people behind those happy pictures. So don't take it as gospel that everybody else is happy and you're not, because that's not how it is.
So my social media, it's why I try to cover a lot of my experiences and how it's affected me in the long run. A lot of my social media, picture attracts, because it's a picture of me with a beard, with a dog, with my body armour on. Oh wow, what's this? And then the story reads of me being on operations. This is how I've struggled. My coping mechanisms I've used while on operations. Yeah. So it's more of like an education piece rather than a look how awesome I am.
Would you say that there are adequate mental health programmes and help and support within the military for serving members?
No.
There's not.
There's stuff in place, and it's good stuff. I've gone through the programs that they put on. It was a 10-week program that was once a week. I wasn't happy talking in a group.
So was it a group
yeah,
thing that you went
to? Yeah, a group thing. It was 2 hours once a week. There's 10 people in a room, all wanting to talk, all dealing with mental health. And then once that 10 weeks had finished, I was asked if I wanted to go on to the one-to-one programs, which I was like, because I don't feel I've got much out of the last sort of 10 weeks. And then that was it. I got told that it was a year waiting list. So there was probably no point waiting. So I just thought at the time, struggling still, and I was like, whatever, just discharge me then if you want to discharge me. And so I got discharged, and then I ended up back with them a few months later. The doctors sent me back to the DCMH.
Yeah.
So there is stuff in place. I just think there needs to be more of it.
For the amount of people that do actually suffer with their mental health, there's just not enough services to go around.
Also, you're not dealing with your average person on the street.
No.
You're dealing with soldiers who have been through a lot of stuff in their careers. That's where you're trying to tackle the mental health, not just throw them on a group, because that's what the NHS do. It does help because it cuts down the year waiting list, so you do get in there.
Yeah.
And again, like I said, it is important to talk, but when you're going into a group session and you don't get the opportunity to talk, you're then sort of sat there again. Maybe next week. I did find the Army Welfare Service was good. So again, that was one session a week. And that was an opportunity just to sit there and talk to someone.
And that's sometimes all you need, isn't it? Therapy that is private is expensive. How do you feel about just going out with your friends and talking? Do you feel that that gets things off your chest? And that's absolutely free.
Again, it goes back to that. You need the right friend group around you. When you've got friends that want to know what's going on with you and want to help you out, that's always good. And it is always good once you start talking, because then it's all the stuff that's just stuck here. And as soon as you say it, sometimes you're like, oh, it's no longer in my head anymore. It's all out in the universe, and I don't need to worry about it anymore.
Absolutely.
And sometimes the thing that's in your head that you're really worrying about, your friends turn around and go, what are you worrying about that? And then you're like, good point. I don't know why I'm worrying about that.
No, absolutely. I think I've had those sorts of moments where you have something in your head, you're overthinking it, and you're constantly overthinking it. And then when you say it out loud to someone else, it makes you think of it differently. So then you think, well, actually, it's not that bad, or I could actually do X, Y, and Z in order to combat that problem, and it would be problem solved. And I think it makes you think about it a different way, for sure. And then getting somebody else's perspective on it as well is also a massive help, isn't it?
And I think what you said there is that the overthinking.
Yeah.
I think that is a big killer as well. Is when you've got something in your head and you just think it's not going anywhere. No. It's just going in circles, and you just need to try and break that chain.
Yeah.
Right. Stop thinking about it. And it's harder. Easier said than done sometimes, but breaking the chain by doing something like take a dog out for a walk, put some music in and listen to some music, sing some songs out loud, and break the chain to stop thinking about it. It's not as easy as just sitting there and going, right, I need to stop thinking about this now. There needs to be something that you need to do to be able to break that chain.
I'm going to go into coping strategies in a minute, actually. Yes, perfectly, moving on perfectly. So where you are with your mental health now, you feel like you're in a much better position than where you were a couple of years ago when you had your breakdown. Mm-hmm. What are the main coping strategies that you would say have helped you fix your mental health issues?
The group of friends around you is one of the biggest helps. I think the main thing for someone like me is the dog, because that time when I struggled the most is the 8 months between Freddie dying and me adopting Ursula, because that's sort of what I noticed when I was going through it. I was like, what did I used to do? Why do I feel this bad? What did I used to do when I felt bad? And it was, I used to put music in my ears and take the dog for a walk. I look back as well, when I've been on tours and being a dog handler in the army, I think that's what's sort of prolonged my time in the military, is when I've been on tours, I've been able to just put my headphones in and take the dog for a walk, and then I could be anywhere on the planet.
So I would say that that's probably 3 really positive, healthy coping strategies that you're using there all in one. So you're putting music in your ears. Music is a great expression of emotion and of feeling, and I think it's really healthy to explore how you're feeling through listening to music. So I think that, first of all, is a really healthy way to cope with your mental health. The second one is being out in nature. Yeah. It's actually scientifically proven to reduce cortisol levels within the body, which reduces stress because it's a stress hormone, and it increases pleasant feelings. So being out in nature is the second one. And the third one is spending time with people who you love. And now it doesn't always have to be people, it can be dogs. And there might be some outtakes on this video. Kieron's bought his dog, Ursula, and she's laid down in front of us now. But we'll show you at the end of the video anyway. We'll show you Ursula and show you why she's special to Kieron. So that's 3 really healthy coping strategies. It's music, being around the people that you love, and getting out for a walk in nature to think about things. What would you say are some other coping strategies that you've used that are healthy?
So I started doing hypnotherapy at the beginning of the year through a company called Remaster Your Mind. that was another moment where I knew I needed more help, but I didn't want to take that step. And it was a guy called Gareth who was a local into my mum's shop.
Okay.
And when I was talking to my mum, and my mum was like, "Oh, Gareth does this, by the way," and I was like, "Oh, that'd be someone who might be worth talking to." And then as he came, my mum straight away went, "Oh, Gareth, this is my son, and he wants to talk to you." So I thought at the time I was like, "Mum, why'd you do that?" And she was like, "Would you have contacted him?" I was like, "Probably not." So it was probably a good thing that my mum did that. And again, at the start, I was sort of hypnotherapy. I was like, I don't know if this is going to work. That was probably, from all the different therapies that I've done, that was probably the best one that helped me and has helped me understand how powerful the mind is.
Indeed, yeah.
The first time put me into my safe place.
Yeah.
And he was talking about me being there with Ursula, and I pictured myself there. And then all of a sudden, Freddie appeared. So when I'm in my safe place now, when I sit there, it's got a nice place in New Zealand, which I love. And I'm sat there with Ursula and Freddie. Yeah, it's just, the power of the mind is crazy.
Unbelievable, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. Because I think if your mind can take you into such dark places where you feel like you no longer want to be in this world, then your mind can take you to places where you love to be.
Yeah.
Can't it? Interesting. That's a really good coping strategy, actually. Really a good, healthy one.
Yeah.
The fact that you've sought that help and then you're actively carrying out the strategies that you've been equipped with during that therapy. So I think it's a really helpful thing to do is to go and seek therapy.
Yeah.
I think it's really important to understand how your mind works, how you think about things, how you react to things, and those types of things to help you understand yourself.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you for that, Kieron. Now, Kieron has his own Instagram page. You're about to start a business called Hawk Canine.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell people at home what it is that you're going to do?
Yeah, I think with my struggles with mental health, I fell out of love with dog training, because when I'm like to the end of my career, I was actually going to completely get away. Right, dogs are done for me. I don't want to do any more dog stuff. Going through all my therapy, it brought the love for dogs back to me.
Yeah.
Just sort of seeing what other people were doing, and it's because of the level that I train dogs at. I wasn't really interested in going down training pet dogs and stuff like that. I'm not taking away anything from any of them trainers. It's just not for me.
Yeah.
I started looking into supplying kit and equipment for handlers, trainers, owners through my experience of all the operations I've done.
Yeah.
And putting that into and then designing my own equipment. And that's where we're at. We're back and forth with suppliers at the moment because the samples that I've had so far are good.
Yeah.
But I want them to be perfect.
Yeah.
And so we are getting close to launching.
Yep.
It's exciting. So it's leads, collars at the moment.
Yep.
To sort of start with, and then some t-shirts, hats, bits like that to go inside. And then in the future, once we take off, and then I'll go down into more routes of sort of harnesses and bits like that.
Yeah. And what we'll do is we'll put Kieron's link to his Instagram page down in the description. So if you want to go and check it out, you can. Loads of posts in the past probably 6 months, I would say.
Quite a lot of posts up there now.
You can learn all about Kieron and what he's been doing in his life and more about his mental health struggles and how he's coped. Really hope that you've enjoyed this interview today, and I really appreciate you, Kieron, coming on and sharing things that are personal to you. And I know that everyone back at home will really appreciate that as well. So thank you for coming on.
Okay.
Most welcome. Absolutely most welcome. If you like this content, then please do subscribe to the channel and maybe stick a comment down below and let us know if you've struggled with your mental health or if you have some coping strategies that you'd like to share. That'd be great. So thank you, Kieron, again, and thank you all for watching. See you on the next one. So before we disappear, what we wanted to do is show you Ursula, who's Kieron's dog. There's something really special about Ursula, isn't there, Kieron?
Yeah, there is indeed.
Go for it.
So, come here, puppy. Stand up. As you can see, Ursula's blind and she has no eyes. The story is she was a military dog. She was out in Cyprus. She was had an accident, lost one eye. They couldn't save it, so they sent her back to the UK. Once she got back to the UK, the other eye got infected. They had to remove that eye. When I was running the rehome team in the military, she turned up and I fell in love straight away with her and massively helped me get over my issues because she just, as you can see, she just carries on like normal. It's like she may as well have eyes. That's how she acts. And that's something that helps me all the time. It's like, come swimming with me. I go into the lake, I'll swim in the lake and she'll just swim next to me. And then thinking about it afterwards, you're like, she has no idea what's going on. She's just in water and she's swimming. Can never be.
And that shows the trust that she has in you, though,
Yeah,
isn't it? And
yeah.
that's the bond that you two have got, which is so lovely.
Yeah, it is. Having that bond with the dog, and I think that's just that mutual respect between you and your dog.
Yeah.
She's helped me so much.
And she has absolutely no idea that she's done it either, does she?
No, but she's great.
Yeah. Fantastic.